Yes, guys, welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. We're here to have a look back at a very busy and full weekend of FPL action. And of course, look ahead. We got some chip chat, we got transfer chat, loads going on in the next hour. Dean, how are you doing, mate? And did you enjoy the game last night? I know it was a defeat, but...
No, it wasn't a very good game. Fulham, not only did they lose 1-0 to Tottenham, we stopped playing after like 40 minutes.
Half time, yeah.
Yeah, just before half time, we stopped playing and allowed Tottenham to go 1-0 up and just couldn't come back to life. It was a really frustrating night, actually. One of our worst performances of the season, which is annoying because went there really optimistic. I was like, Tottenham aren't that good. I really think we can do something here. We could have if we'd have just carved open some proper chance. We had a lot of the ball in the first half, didn't do a lot with it. Kane scores in my FPL team. There's this tiny glitch in my brain that like triggers when that happens. I'm like, oh, at least he's in my team. But ultimately, I would definitely, as you know, would swap any fantasy points for a Fulham win, and just wasn't coming. Willian was off of Boyle. A few things happening. Would say like one player to look out for Fulham once he's up and running properly. Manor Solomon, player that we signed in the summer. Yeah, and he got a really bad injury as soon as he joined Fulham, and that's at least two sub appearances now in a row. I imagine he'll play in the FA Cup at the weekend. Keep your eye on this one, people, because Manor Solomon, I think if he works his way into the Fulham starting 11, I feel he'll be very, very involved, and I think he'll get Mitro involved again too a bit more. So yeah, that could be one to have on your watch list, actually, Manor Solomon.
Good to see the chat's busy as always. Rob FPL Songs on 72 without captain Haaland. Good score. Nice comment there from Steve. You're the wrong way round. It's like Declan and or Hardy and Laurel. I love that. Guys in the chat, what do you prefer? Do you like us mixing it up a little bit, or do you like the original left and right order?
Yeah, it's a bit unnerving, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't.
I
take my eyes off the screen in the intro because it just completely threw me.
Yeah.
Good to see. How
did your weekend go, FPL? I mean, you obviously went to the biggest game of all.
Yeah.
But also, did you do well in fantasy?
Yeah, I actually had a red arrow. I went from 212k in the world to 220k. So 8k red arrow I'll take. I did captain Haaland. But the big error I made this weekend, and guys in the chat, let me know if you bought in Solly March. I know loads of FPL managers did, but the call was Mitoma. And
we
you know
both got
what?
that wrong.
Yeah. We did. And if I had waited another week, I absolutely would be going Mitoma this week, even if they both had blanked, because I went to the Brighton Leicester game, and I'll talk more about the sort of eye test report from that in a minute. But it was pretty obvious which one's the FPL asset and which one isn't.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's the thing. And that's why it is good to get to games whenever you can, because you see it so differently, because you see their threat off the ball, which you don't see when you're just watching on TV. Like, I know you were saying before we came on air, that the frustrating thing about going to a game is that you miss all of the others. And that's how I actually feel about the World Cup. And when people are like, are you annoyed you're not at the World Cup? I was like, no, not at all, because actually I can watch it all now. If I'm at a World Cup, it's a lot harder to follow.
True.
It is similar on a Saturday, particularly in the Premier League. But you do get an edge because you've now seen Mitoma, for example, up close. You've done your eye test on him, and you know what you're going to get from him when you probably do put him into your team at some point in the season now.
Yeah, 100%. And I completely get what you mean about sort of going to a game, but also at, say, the World Cup, because the 2 weeks I was at the World Cup, I barely followed anything and other than the games I went to. And then the 2 weeks I wasn't at the World Cup, I was fully immersed in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Really interesting that. Better to eye test all the games on the telly if you can, Andrew, says Andrew. Yeah, it's a fair point because you can watch all the games on telly, but you do see things differently when you're at the ground. And
you only see what they show you.
Yeah, exactly. And also, when you watch a game on TV, we are so influenced by our commentators. It's untrue. Like, I realized just from being on like FPL and football Twitter, the amount of opinion that's often shared or agreed with, say a Gary Neville, for example, because he does at times talk a lot of sense. And when he does, I realize, say, months later, let's say he's been critical of a player, you just realize the football supporters on Twitter will often just regurgitate stuff that commentators have said, and that's often just got commentators' thoughts. You're watching the game without commentary, like at a live game, is very, very different. You're not influenced.
It really is, yeah. It's actually interesting. Like, even today, the Fulham game was on this morning, actually, as I started doing a bit of work, and it was on, and I had an eye on it, and it's like, you just see it so differently. You see it so differently. Obviously, the angles are different. Wherever you're sitting means you're seeing certain players up close, whereas the other side of the pitch or the other end of the pitch can be trickier to tell. It's really interesting, but we all know that everyone would get to games as much as they could if it was possible all the time.
Yeah. FPL Spartans, thank you very much. We really appreciate that one there. Good to see you back in the flow of
DMG.
things. I think Spartans is probably one of those that's hit the like button as well. If you guys fancy it, do hit that like button and always subscribe as well. We do these streams on Mondays usually and Fridays. So usually one at the start of the week, one at the end of the week. Times might vary though, so hit that notification and subscribe button so you can always know when we're streaming, because there's a few different deadlines over the next couple of weeks, and with that we might have a few time changes. And Dean, look, coming up in today's show, we're going to be talking transfers later in the show. I know it's been a very busy week or two. We're going to have a look at our teams, and we've got the eye test stuff. So let's crack on with my eye test report from the weekend.
Okay.
Usually I would have watched 4 or 5 live games or the TV games, and I'd give you kind of my top players from those games and anything I might have seen on Match of the Day. But this week, because I was at a game on Saturday and a game on Sunday, I'm just going to show you and give you an insight as to what I saw in those two fixtures.
Yeah.
And they were both really interesting from an FPL perspective. Firstly, Leicester-Brighton. Leicester, the only FPL asset really at Leicester is a guy that's been injured for ages. Dean wanted him in his team come game week 17 because he's so good. That is James Maddison. And he was in the squad on Saturday. So it was really cool just watching him warm up.
Oh, yeah.
He's clearly on a different, we know he's on a different level to the Leicester team, but even in the warm-up, you watch and you're just like, he doesn't miss a ball. They were doing shooting practice, shooting drills in the warm-up, and you're just like, this guy is just on a different level. And I was thinking, as soon as you're back, and I think he got like a 20-minute cameo, but as soon as you're back starting regularly, he's going to be an FPL option again. He's someone that he's on every time Leicester score, it will go through him. He's on all the set pieces. He's running it. Arguably, before the World Cup, he was in the form of his career before this injury. And he's probably going to be pushing for a move in the summer, right, Dean? So we'll see a big second half of the season from him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, Leicester were always hoping he wouldn't move in this window, probably helped by the fact he wasn't fit. And nobody was really going to go and put enough money in front of Leicester to force them to sell. In the summer, I'd be extremely surprised if James Maddison wasn't on the move. And you've just seen why. He's just that cut above, and Leicester just aren't at that level at the moment.
Yeah. I tell you what, I was also really excited by watching someone hit a really good dead ball in Vestergaard. I was like, how
really?
Vestergaard's still at Leicester? I was surprised how good he is on the ball. And then I thought, yeah, this is a guy that gets in the Denmark squad, and he's been on Leicester's bench since he signed. He's probably fourth choice centre back of that club. You got the likes of Amati starting ahead of him, and even when Evans is fit, I think he's fifth choice centre back. And I'm sure he'll be on the move. But again, he's great in FPL when he's in a starting 11 because of his goal threat. He's such a beast at corners, as we saw at Southampton at the end.
Mm-hmm.
But look, the real eye test there was Brighton. I was looking. I went to the game thinking, I want to check out the number 9, whether that's Ferguson or Welbeck, because they drop deep at Brighton. The number 9, they link the play. But Ferguson's a 4.5 option. He came off the bench and got the equaliser. He's going to share minutes with Welbeck, so I'm thinking I'll probably park that idea. But I wanted to see McAllister, who's 5.6, March, who I think is 5.1, and Matoma, who's 5. And look at those three and think, have I made the right call on March, and who do I want moving forward? And I thought McAllister post-World Cup was going to be moved into the number 10. And I think he played in the Cup, in the Carabao Cup in the number 10 role and scored a couple and looked really good.
Yeah.
In the Premier League, he's mainly played in the 2 with Caicedo, who's been linked with Chelsea. And then he had Lallana ahead of him in the 10. So definitely an avoid for me as McAllister. He is playing far too deep to consider spending 5.6 when you can get the other 2 for less. He's also he is on pens, McAllister, but other than that, there's no goal threat.
That's interesting, yeah, because as you say, we're coming back from the World Cup. You felt that might change. Obviously, there's talk of a transfer to at one point. They're obviously not interested in letting go right now. But yeah, that's exactly what you want to know, isn't it? If he's showing no willing or he's not able to get near the box, he's just not worth even considering.
Yeah, I think it was a couple of weeks after the World, maybe a week, his first week back at Brighton after the World Cup. De Zerbi played him in the 10 role. I think it was against Charlton, maybe in the Cup, and he scored a really nice goal. Maybe 2 in a game. But yeah, he just hasn't done it in the Prem. And I look back at a couple of other games in the Premier League and he's been in a 2 with Caicedo. So for the time
was Ferguson good?
Cold, yeah, when he came on, he was very good, mate. Like the header he scored as well was brilliant. He did more in 15 minutes than Welbeck did all game, actually.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that's one to look out for sure.
Yeah. And then the March Matoma thing killed me because as soon as literally I was 5 minutes into the game and my mate who I was with, I looked at him and went, I've made the wrong decision here. and like everything Matoma does he looks like a classed silky player that's playing at a different level. A little bit like you said about seeing João Felix in that Chelsea team. He just looks like he's on a different level, which is weird. This is a guy that was playing university football 3 years ago in Japan. And yeah, he then scored a worldie. He had a few big chances created, which notched him up to the top of the bonus point system. Solly March missed an absolute sitter that Matoma put on a plate for him. But other than that, he was pretty wide. Yeah. Honestly, I don't know how he missed. But yeah, Matoma definitely looks the option if you're still on the fence. But look, I'm not going to make that move because it's a 4-point hit I'm not going to take. They've got Bournemouth next. I expect points from both of them. What I'd say about March and Matoma is they're often the most advanced players on the pitch. The number 9, whether it's Ferguson or Welbeck, drops into that 10 role, feeds them, links play, and then of course is a centre point in the box. But a bit like we saw at Sassuolo, those wide forwards become the talisman that team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I went to Sunday, United Arsenal. And that was awesome. I was like going from one very quiet stadium, which is very sort of family friendly and sort of very rural Leicester. It feels very rural, like the fans.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
It's a rugby town. And then you go to London and the atmos at the Emirates. It felt like the atmos was amazing because those fans genuinely think they're going to win the league. And look, they're favourites for a reason. They're playing amazing football. And it was a great spectacle. And I just thought Arsenal were so impressive. I know the scoreline looks tight. And the fact that United got the late equaliser, Arsenal got the late winner, makes you think it was a tight game. Perhaps if you just saw the result and the times of the goals. So one-sided. Arsenal bossed it. What did you make, Dean?
Look, I think from a Man United point of view, I think there's optimism to be taken from it. They were in the game until the end. And I think if you weigh up where United are now, under Ten Hag, now quickly it's moved forward. I think that it's promising. It's taken Arsenal a little while under Arteta to get to here. And for United, I think you could honestly use this as a marker to be like, okay, well, in a year's time, we could easily be doing what Arsenal are doing now, possibly even more. That's what I would take from it because, yeah, like Arsenal deserved to win it in the end. They just had a bit too much for United. I do think it probably would have been different with Casemiro available. I do probably think that was actually a big difference. But from a United point of view, they didn't expect to be in the title race this season anyway. I know Arsenal didn't either. But one more year of building, I think United can be there. The big question really is like, who was the standout winger? Like from what you were watching, what did you take? Because I mean, you had like 4 world-class like wide players there, and Saka, Martinelli, Rashford, and Anthony. I'm guessing Anthony, the £85 million one, was by far the worst.
Honestly, so bad. It was interesting. I was watching thinking, I need Saka in my life. Like Saka he's just a star boy there. And as good as Rashford is, Rashford's more about the moments, isn't he? And he can produce moments out of nowhere, but be quite quiet. Saka is so buzzy and so lively and always wants the ball and creates opportunities every time he's on the ball, whilst Rashford might have 10 passes backwards to his fullback and then explode out of nowhere. So in terms of FPL, like, look, Rashford's in our teams, but if we're looking at Arsenal assets and how we rank them, we need triple Arsenal in our teams because they're the best team in the league. Their players have been priced as mid-priced assets, and they're about to have a double game week in 23. So ahead of that double, I think they have Everton in 22, then a double in 23. By the time we get to that double, we need 3. Now, I've got Martinelli and White. If I was to pick my 3 Arsenal assets that I would like in an ideal world at sales on a wild card, Martinelli wouldn't be in and White wouldn't be in. It would be triple Arsenal attack. And as good as Arsenal are at the back, there's loads of other good 4.5 million defenders in the game. You don't have to have Ben White. You don't have to have 5 million Gabriel. You can have a Stupian at Brighton. You can have the Man United defenders. You can have a Chelsea defender, a City defender. Yet the Arsenal forwards, you can't go and find elsewhere. And Odegaard, Saka, and Nketiah would be 3 names in my team. And I don't know how I rank them. I probably put Saka as number 1, but he is the most expensive. So for value, I probably put Odegaard and Nketiah slightly above Saka in terms of value. But if money's not an issue, I'd go Saka and then the other 2. But they're head and shoulders over Martinelli, who's a little bit off the boil at the moment. And Trossard came on and looked good. And I just wonder if he might eventually dip in form and therefore loses or share some minutes with Trossard.
Yeah, maybe. I'm really intrigued. Obviously, at the weekend, Arsenal are playing Man City in the FA Cup. And that is really interesting because, like, part of it is like, okay, like, does this matter to Arsenal enough to put out their strongest team? Because there could be a problem here. If Arsenal go into that game, Man City play peak Man City, win that game, possibly even by a couple if they put on one of their, like, old school super shows.
Yeah.
And Arsenal aren't quite at it, and they lose, and it's a bit of a mental blow. They're a bit down. Or do you think, do you know what? I'm going to use the second string. I'm going to give a few people some minutes in their legs here. It doesn't matter too much. Make sure that all the other lads are ready for the games that we've got. You know, Everton, Brentford, Man City coming up. Like that Man City game is the game I want to win. I'm not sure Arteta will do that. I think there's an argument for that, though. I think Arsenal are in a position to be like, FA Cup, who cares? We're going for the Premier League.
Yeah. And neither team want to draw. So it's going to be interesting because there's a replay. If there's a replay, I think the replay will be like 3 or 4 days before they play each other in the league or something like that. It's really tight. I look forward to seeing what the managers do. I just know, though, Arteta's going to know what Pep would do in terms of selection because he's worked so long with him. So I wonder if Arteta will look to mimic that and maybe, I don't know, it's drop a few players, or if he goes, no, we want the confidence of knowing this is a team that can beat City and go full strength. I don't know. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
They've got the Europa League as well. And I'm thinking a club like Arsenal ordinarily in the Europa League knockouts would be going full strength. I think that we're going to see some players being rested still in the knockouts, the Europa, because they just have to concentrate on the league, don't they?
You'd think so. Really intriguing, isn't
it? Yeah. Just one final
Mohamed's
point.
Back. Oh, hello, Mohamed.
Oh, nice. Yeah, it has been a while, mate. It has been a while. Good to see Paul and Focus. So we got Henry Savels joined late, another one of our regulars who's catching up on 1.5 times.
Yeah, but
so he'll be with us live in about 10 minutes, no doubt. One final point on that Arsenal attack. Nketiah's a predator in the box. We know that. Jesus isn't, right? So what sort of Arsenal do we prefer? It's hard to tell because they do play differently. And one observation I've made with Nketiah in the team is it affects Martinelli big time. And the FPL points show us this. Martinelli with Jesus in the team gets to occupy a lot of those central spaces because Jesus drops deep and Jesus also drifts left a lot. And with that, there's an open channel for Martinelli to run into. With Nketiah on the pitch, that channel's not there. And Martinelli, certainly against United, was so wide all the time. He doesn't run and occupy those central positions because Nketiah is always in the box and always central, doesn't drop short in the same way. So again, in terms of FPL, a lot of us are on Martinelli. We have got a bit of a dilemma for, do we make that, and I'm inverted commas here, sideways move of one Arsenal 6.5 mid to another, say to Odegaard. But it's worth 4 points every transfer. And whether or not you're taking a 4-point hit, you kind of see every move as 4 points because eventually you will take that hit. And I just wonder if it's worth making that Martinelli to Odegaard switch sooner rather than later, because you're going to benefit in points. I'm sure Odegaard is going to start outscoring Martinelli, and Odegaard's also going to always get 90. And now Trossard's there and Smith Rowe's fit again. We are going to see Martinelli coming off a hell of a lot at 70 minutes. He's going to be he's going to have a worldy performance not to be subbed every game. Yeah. Captain Odegaard is going to play 90 week in, week out, same as Saka.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. No, it's really going to be intriguing to see how Arsenal manages second half of the season. I'm still not convinced. By the way, CH says every time Dean looks at the telly, someone needs to hit the like. I'm watching RB Leipzig are beating Schalke 6-1.
Your commitment to the Bundesliga, mate.
Every time, it's on, and every time I'm look up, they've scored another goal, and that's why I keep looking at the TV. It's about to end, so don't worry.
Was it a highlights package?
No, it's live. Bundesliga have got they've got a full set of games tonight, and this is the early kickoff. Because Bundesliga have played 16 games of their season. They just restarted this weekend from the World Cup. So they hadn't played since the beginning of November.
It's mental.
And they're just coming back in. So they've got loads of games to play now. So they're packing them all in. And RB Leipzig they're playing very well. I think they're second in the league too. So you can look out for them.
Is Timo Werner back scoring goals, Dean?
Timo Werner has scored tonight. I have seen him score a goal tonight. So yes, Timo Werner. He's just been taken off, but he did score one of the 6.
Speaking of Turbo Timo, Darwin Núñez is back fit. Another of those forwards that looks like they're going to be a really good FPL asset, but perhaps isn't one because of they're missing big chances. And there's a lot of similarity in those guys. But Liverpool against Chelsea felt like a mid-table clash. And I just look at both those teams at the minute and think you don't want assets on those teams. And for those of you that own Mo Salah, you have to sell him. He's had one shot in the last 3 games. He's had a shot each time. One. Mo Salah.
That's just insane. I don't know what's happened. I bet they wish he hadn't signed him up to a new contract. They should have taken the money for him while it was there. He's fallen off a cliff like a few have, to be fair. I mean, think of what Salah and Son were both doing last season.
Yeah.
I know they've both had this massive drop-off. Don't know if it's a physical, mental thing, maybe a mix of both. There've been plenty of players, actually, that of that level that have dropped down. Van Dijk had before he got injured. So that it's been very difficult. And I think there actually is an argument for how many of these premium players are actually worth the money at the moment. I think there is so much other value in this game that you could pick a much smarter team. You're always tempted to have 2 at least of those high-priced players because you think they're going to pay off. And they usually do. This season, I'm starting to wonder. I'm really starting to wonder.
You could have Haaland and loads of mid-price mids.
Exactly, that's it. I think Haaland, obviously, you still need for sure. I don't know that there is anyone else. I mean,
De Bruyne's not really justifying the tag.
No, I think Kane might end up doing it again, but he hasn't. Tottenham haven't been properly functioning, so it's been hard to tell. We're going to talk a bit more about Tottenham later in the show. By the way, people will be doing a bit of Tottenham in the transfer section.
Oh, looking forward to that. Who to sell Salah for, says Luke. Look, Bruno has a double game week, and we got a question about the double game weeks from Mohammed. So when do we find out if United and Leeds double? So at the moment, game week 22 deadline is not this Friday, it's the Friday after. And they do both have a double game week. However, if one of them draw in the FA Cup, then they will have a replay, and therefore the game week 22 double will be cancelled. So we need no draws. I can't remember off the top of my head who both of them have got in the cup, but they've both heavily backed to qualify. So the bookies put them at about 70% likely to have this double game week.
Right. Okay, well, that's interesting.
But don't make your transfers yet. Don't make transfers at all thinking they've definitely got a double. If you're looking to bring United and Leeds players in, just wait. Just wait. And we'll be telling you on Chasing Green Arrows next Monday, next Friday, about double game weeks and fixture congestion. But we'll know a lot more in the next week or so.
Yeah, Man United got Reading. Oxlane says that should be a foregone conclusion. That really should. I'm not got too much worry there. And Leeds, they've got a straightforward one too.
So 70% likely that both of them qualifies. Yeah, that's pretty high.
Yeah, I mean they would both have to really mess up to not be through. So I think I think it's more than 70%. I think that's actually a bit guarded, to be honest. Do it. Make your transfer.
Magic of the cup, mate. Magic of the cup. Boreham Wood.
That really would be magic.
Bruno, we should touch on because a lot will go there. A lot have got Rashford and Shaw, and a double game week of Crystal Palace and Leeds at Old Trafford, both those fixtures. Tons are going to go triple captain Rashford, and we'll speak more about that next week. But I like that if you've still got your triple captainship. But also, tons will look at that and say, I have to have 3 United players. And if you're going for a third, it feels to me it's probably going to be Bruno, but can you fit him into your team in terms of money? Do you want to sell Kevin De Bruyne to Bruno to then know in game week 23, Kevin De Bruyne has got a double game week? So probably not, unless you want to go Bruno, KDB, Bruno back to KDB, but then you're using 2 transfers on that switch.
Yeah.
So maybe you go for a third United defender, or maybe if Wout Weghorst scores goals between now and game week 22 deadline and United play a couple of times, we get to watch Wout Weghorst play, then maybe we consider Veggie. But Martial could be back and then take the spot. But I think if Weghorst scores goals, I think the manager will be reluctant to drop him.
I think I quite like him. I thought in his that game, I think he brought quite a lot to the table.
Agreed.
I really feel like that is a transfer that could work out. I even feel that if he offers enough from now to the end of the season, he might be worth signing for a reasonable fee, and then you get rid of Martial and then sign somebody else as your main striker and have Weghorst as the backup.
You need
for
a backup
another main
fit.
striker. Yeah, exactly, because you just can't keep going with Martial like this. So, and there will be takers somewhere for Martial. So, yeah, I think that's the route United will go down if Weghorst can, 1, stay fit, and 2, actually get a few goals. And I've really got the feeling he might.
I can't believe his pressing stats and numbers. Like one time, I think he was the best presser in Europe in terms of, I think it was his last season before he joined Burnley, Wolfsburg. But yeah, he works incredibly hard off the ball. And I thought he was pretty neat and tidy. He's pretty comfortable on the ball as well and linked the play quite well at the Emirates. So there's our little report on a couple of the games over the weekend. It's good to see 241 of you watching this Tuesday night. Please do hit that like button and subscribe. We'll be back again on Friday at 5 p.m. later this week. We'll be having a little digest of the season so far, maybe, and looking ahead to some bits and pieces. Might even have a special guest or 2 coming up in the next show or 2. But look, we should move on to, let's have a look at our teams. And then look, in 10 minutes time, we've got Dean's take on some of the hottest transfers right now. So stay with us. But next up is Pick My Team.
Okay, so 77 points. Is that what I ended up with? I think I actually ended up with 83 after Kane and bonuses and stuff came in.
Oh,
so
I'm
yeah,
77. So I wonder if I'm going to show as 83. That'd be nice.
Okay, there you go. But yeah, I got 83 points actually from this week, and I did get a green arrow. I'm back into the top million, so I'm 900,000 now. So that's a bit more promising. Still got that triple captain up my sleeve. But people, nice. I said 2 weeks ago when we were talking about the Haaland triple captaincy, I said I'm not that worried about playing him in a double game week because I think he might have more chance of scoring a hat-trick in something like a game against Wolves.
We need to find that and clip it.
And that would be the week to captain him. And there it was. Obviously didn't follow my own advice because I thought, well, I can't really do that, can I? So didn't do it. And as soon as that third went in, I could just hear myself talking to myself. Told some of my mates, they were like, what are you talking about? You can't just say things like that after the event. I was like, I said it on the YouTube show, like, go and watch it. They're like, no, we're not going to do that.
We have to find that clip. It'll be the week where, it was probably on the Friday stream where I said I'm going to triple
captained him, mustn't it?
Yeah. And I remember you using Wolves as the example, and I was thinking, that's not a great single game week because Wolves are good at the back, but no, of course it was.
So I need to find the next one of those Martial and those Haaland hat-tricks. Anyway, what will be. Danny Ings, what a disaster. What an absolute disaster. I've taken a punt. I thought, right, they need goals. They got to get a win. Ings is in. He's fit. He's going to play. Not only did he barely play, he's now injured for a month.
course
Gotta
he
get
is.
him
It's
out.
Danny Ings.
Yeah. I mean, feel a bit for him, feel more for myself. And I know a couple of other people in the chat on Friday were thinking about doing the same thing. So if you did bring in Danny Ings, I can only apologise for jinxing him. We're going to have to get around the table and figure out how we fix this, because it is a problem, and it means that I might have Almiron hanging around a little bit.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't supposed to still be in there. Yeah, that was
The keeper
annoying.
decision, Dean, that worked. Loads of questions on Friday's stream. We had tons. Ward or Kepa, Ward or Kepa. Everyone asked me on my Instagram live. I was getting it on Twitter, on this show. Everyone wanted to know, do you play Kepa or Ward? And from Kepa's ownership, about 40% of Kepa's owners, I think it was 37% of Kepa's owners, benched him. 37% of Kepa's owners benched him for a 9-pointer. Now, they didn't all have Ward. They may have had a Edison or whoever, but loads of them had Ward who got 1 point. And we said, you have to play Kepa over Ward because I know it's away at Liverpool, but Liverpool haven't been scoring.
Yeah.
And Brighton were always going to score goals against Leicester. Everyone scores goals against Leicester. So surely Brighton were going to. One of the best attacks in the league at the moment. But Kepa's had a 10-pointer and now a 9-pointer, and he's only 7% owned. He's been good to his team.
Yeah, he has. And in his next 3 games are Fulham, West Ham, and Southampton. So certainly not going to be changing that. 2 of those games are at home, the Fulham and the Southampton ones. And I've got Thiago Silva in there too, and the clean sheets
nice double up.
are really helping. Yeah, so that was very handy. Gabriel's a bit annoying. But, he's more than made up for that across the season. Martinelli, again, like Martinelli and Almiron and Ings, like that's the, those 3 are the ones just bothering me, really. Not sure what I'll do.
What's your thoughts on Nketiah? Because knowing Arsenal double in 23, and you're probably going to, you are going to be selling Ings, you've got options like you could go Nonto with a double, Weghorst or Martial with a double, but Nketiah has Everton and then a double. And
yeah,
he's around the same price.
I do like it. I saw someone just mention that in the chat. I do like it, especially Everton down on their luck. We don't yet know exactly what the answer is going to be for them going forward. But I would suggest whoever does take over has got a ridiculous job ahead of them in terms of repairing all the fractures within that club. That's both on and off the field and reconnecting everything. So you would imagine Arsenal go to Everton and get a win. And I think Nketiah, with that combined with the double game week and one of the games being Brentford, I think that probably is the way to go. It's hard to look beyond that. I saw somebody talking about Callum Wilson a minute ago and saying, basically, oh yeah, a laser. Is Callum Wilson still starting for Newcastle? I mean, he is, but he's a bit invisible. He's not having a good time of things, which is very Callum Wilson.
It's just not scoring goals.
Yeah, he's not having a good time of things. And I mean, maybe his place is going to be a threat. Isak came off the bench again at the weekend. I would imagine that Alex Isak can't be too far now from getting a start. So that's going to be something to look out for. St. Maximin came off the bench as well. Newcastle are finding it a bit different. In fairness to Callum Wilson, Newcastle are getting treated differently by teams now. Because they've had such a good first half of the season. Now, because the club analysts have got so much tape to go through, so much work to do in terms of figuring out what they want to do to score goals, they are starting to get shut out a little bit now. And Newcastle are having to come up with new ideas, and they're going to have to get a bit more inventive. We're going to talk again about that in a minute when we get to the transfer section, because it is something they're working on. Mark says, to be fair to Wilson, there's no creativity in that Magpies team. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to address actually in a minute. We're going to be doing transfernomics, and I'm going to be talking about Newcastle transfers that could be coming up. So stay tuned for that.
Good stuff. Let's move on to my team, and I'll mention some of the comments there. FPL Focus went Andreas to Bailey. Punter says good call on the Kepa thing. And look, Rish says about having David Raya at Brentford, who's kept 3 clean sheets in the last 4. I think Raya's on second highest performing goalkeeper this season. Someone we are overlooking Brentford defence a little bit. And I do wonder if Raya comes into our thinking, or even just, a Ben Mee or a Brentford defender at some point. John says about Mudryk looking explosive option. Mudryk, by the way, in his 20-minute cameo, clocked the highest speed in the Premier League this season so far. In that one 20-minute cameo, 36.8 kilometers an hour or whatever it was. I was pumped to see that. Interestingly enough, Chelsea's Dennis Zakaria was at number 5 so far this season.
Was he?
Yeah, I was really surprised to see that.
Mudryk was good.
And Anthony Gordon was number 2. So second fastest player in the Prem. But look, top speed doesn't count for much, really. It's more number of sprints in a game, which is probably more important, and that level of intensity and acceleration. But I always like seeing those top kilometers an hour stats.
Yeah, sure.
If they're linked to the new £90 million man at my club. 77 points for me. This is accurate, and it was a little bit of a red arrow. The defense, a couple of weeks ago, I had that decision of, do I bring in Ake, who had a double game week at the time and got 2 points or whatever, or do I bring in Botman? Well, Botman has since had 2 clean sheets, and Ake has since had 2 blanks. And double Newcastle defense looks so obvious. I just don't know why I didn't make that move. I was blinded by the doubles, and we often are. But whilst double game weeks are important, don't just look at United and Leeds players next week or Arsenal and City players the week after. Some of those on single game weeks still clock up points. And look, the Brighton midfielders, Matoma, for example, is a great example of that. Loads didn't want to buy a Brighton mid because they might blank in game week 25. But don't look at that. Look at the points on offer now. And I did that with Ake versus Botman, blinded by the double. But outside of that, I mean, the template players did well. You know, Trippier and Rashford and Haaland and Kane. Havertz was disappointing because about 90 seconds into that Liverpool game, I thought he had scored. Well, he had scored. And it was a very long VAR decision to rule out the goal. And it was offside by a toe. Even though he was behind Thiago Silva, he was in front of the ball, I think it was. And I did one of those tweets, celebrating the Havertz goal. And of course, 30 seconds later was like, haha.
I did wonder. Yeah, I thought,
I'm just not the type to delete a tweet either. A few have added me from my take on Frank Lampard being a good Everton manager, which I tweeted about a year ago. And I was like, it would be so easy just to delete this tweet because it's getting retweeted and people are laughing at it. And I was like, I can't. I'm just going to let people have their moment.
Yeah. Fair play. I would delete it.
I should have deleted that Havertz thing as well. Next time maybe I should just swallow my pride and delete it. And then fewer people laugh at me. There we go. Transfer thoughts early on are Havertz will go. And it will be for one of those forwards I just mentioned to Dean. It will be, do I go for a double game weeker in United or Leeds? And therefore it's Gnonto, Weghorst or Martial, depending on Martial's fitness. Or is it you just go to Nketiah because I need a third Arsenal anyway. But I know if I go Nketiah, then I can't go Saka or Odegaard the week after because I've already therefore got 3 Arsenal players.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Well, I'm glad you're giving up on Havertz, I have to say.
Yeah, his time's up.
I think, I thought you'd gone a bit too far with the whole thing.
I talked myself into it. It was
only I understand it. I've done it myself many a time. But that wasn't a situation that seems like it's going to have a great ending, is it?
Yeah, no, I think his time's done. The other option is I go Havertz and Nketiah, but I could still maybe go Saka or Odegaard. It would just mean selling White on a hit or maybe making that sideways move of Martinelli out, Odegaard or Saka in. And I think I might have the funds to go Martinelli to Saka if I go Havertz down to Nketiah because Nketiah's cheap. Nketiah's around the same sort of price as those mids. Is cheaper than Saka, but the same as Odegaard and Martinelli. Just looking now at the price of Nketiah because I know all of you guys will be thinking, how much is he? 6.6 million, 5.1% owned. So 6.6 you get Nketiah. Saka's 8.2, Martinelli 6.7, and Odegaard 6.9. So good value there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Loads are tuning in for your transfer chat, Dean. So we need to give it enough time and the respect it deserves. The transfer window is closing soon, so we've got to make the most of these sections in our pods. So please do hit the like button and think about subscribing if you don't already. But next up, we've got Transfernomics.
Yeah, 1 week left of the transfer window, and it's going to be a busy one too. mainly because of this lot, your lot, Chelsea. They just don't know when to stop shopping. They've got an addiction. It's to buying footballers. They're not going to stop. So Anthony Gordon being linked with Chelsea at the moment, I've given it a medium rating. That's for a variety of reasons I'll go into, but one of them is that Newcastle are also in the hunt for Anthony Gordon. So no, Chelsea not going to have this one all their own way, and obviously both of these clubs have money, so it's not like Chelsea here are just outdoing someone and can just throw more money at it. Newcastle probably have more money available to them, but obviously Newcastle are trying to avoid doing that. And so far, they've done a really good job, Newcastle, of not overspending. They've been very cautious. Now, £60 million is what Everton would like for Anthony Gordon. I'm told that there is a strong possibility they accept an offer for Anthony Gordon in this window because they are so hard up, Everton, at the moment. One of the reasons that the Lampard situation dragged on for so long was because of the deal around paying him off. They don't actually have enough money to just keep paying people off, and to pay off Lampard and all of his staff, I was told genuinely impacts how much money they're going to have to bring in other players, even if it's just in terms to pay those other players. Now, that's not a great situation. It's very rare that you get a Premier League club as established as Everton having problems like that.
Yeah.
It seems like Everton would be willing to go as low as £40 million on Anthony Gordon. Now, I say low. I'll be totally honest. I'm not convinced that Anthony Gordon is even worth £40 million.
I don't think best 11. Lampard weren't even picking him at the end.
I think he's good. I don't think I've seen enough of him for long enough to know that he's this good. Look, who am I? Like, these people have got scouts and recruitment teams that are seeing something in this guy. So fair enough. But I'm very surprised. If it was 60 million, I would be astonished if someone pays that for him, because I think there is better money, better value to be had. But a £40 million, okay, maybe. So Newcastle are in talks here. Chelsea are getting involved in negotiations of their own as well. Do Chelsea need him? No. Does that mean they won't get involved? No. There's even a possibility that I spoke to one contact. And they said, well, look, Everton, if they still need him with the new manager, they're obviously trying to loan players, that maybe Chelsea sign him and then loan him back to Everton. I was like, okay, if that's the route we're going down, okay. But Newcastle really are looking at, another attacking asset, at least one more attacking asset to come into the club. And Anthony Gordon, for them, don't forget, they were interested in the summer too. And this is a player they clearly like. He's at an age which is very, very enticing. There's a lot you can still do in terms of moulding him. So I'm probably being a bit harsh on him when I say he's not worth the money being talked about. That's just on what I've seen so far. I'd say coming through the ranks as a teenager, a lot of these clubs would have stats on him beyond what we've seen as a professional footballer.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think at Newcastle, I'd rather see him at Newcastle, put it that way. At Chelsea, I'm very unconvinced about what his pathway is going to be. As I say, that doesn't necessarily mean we're not going to see him. But yeah, in FPL terms, I think we'd probably, at Newcastle, we might end up contemplating signing him. So I think that one would be very interesting.
Yeah. Look forward to seeing how that progresses. And if he goes to Newcastle, how that could affect Almiron's minutes as well. Almiron's not been playing well. I said on that against the obvious, like, easy sell for me. And I think a lot of FPL managers will be selling Almiron regardless of transfer activity. But yeah, one to monitor. Loads of questions about transfers, Dean. Before we move on to your next one, can I fire one or two at you from the chat? Because as always, when we move on to this section, we get transfer questions. And Eddie asks about Kane going to maybe Man United in the summer. And I know a lot will want to know about Harry Kane's future.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, it's undecided at this moment. There have been two big stories in the last week about Harry Kane. One is that Man United want to sign him and he'd be willing to go there. And secondly, it's that Harry Kane's willing to sign a new contract at Tottenham. Now, there's truth, to be honest, in both of those stories. Harry Kane doesn't yet know what the outlook is at Tottenham. They don't know who the manager's going to be beyond this season, and that's kind of a problem when you're trying to hold on to your most valuable asset. You want to convince them of what the next few years looks like. Now, Kane has been, probably loyal to a fault so far to Tottenham. He would argue that it's allowed him to, go and be on his way to this Premier League goal scoring record or whatever. Obviously, equaled Jimmy Greaves' goal scoring record with his goal at Fulham. But your average fan will say, "But go and win trophies. Go and try and do something." And Man United have always wanted Harry Kane. Whatever structure they had in place, they've always had a real interest in signing Harry Kane, and he knows that. Obviously, he came closest to joining Man City, but at that time, Man United were actually interested in him too. I do like the idea of Harry Kane at United. I saw someone mentioned Osimhen too. It really depends what pathway United would go down there. I mean, you get Harry Kane at about 100 million, Osimhen at about 100 million. There's like a 5-year age gap between those players that is, it's pretty key, because you either get Harry Kane, who is, I don't know, he might be beyond his prime, he might be in his prime, I don't know, but he's about to turn 30. Osimhen, I think, is 24, 25. He's still got learning to do. He's still got evolving to do. Could get even better, obviously, from what we've seen now. But Kane, you know what you're getting. I saw him last night, obviously, playing against Fulham. He doesn't really get involved a lot of the time, Harry Kane. And when you watch him up close and you see he makes these runs off the ball, he knows he's probably not going to get the ball, but he's still just moving the defenders around all the time. And on that goal, he just makes one movement, stands in between the two centre-backs, takes his touch, and he's away, and it's in the corner. Man United are crying out for that. They just haven't got that. They haven't had it for a long time to get themselves into that conversation to genuinely be title contenders. And I think that's why they want Kane. But Tottenham have been waiting basically since the World Cup for Kane to give them the green light that he's open to have talks over a new contract. Now, that moment is approaching, and it will come after this transfer window. The first set of talks will indicate whether Kane is open to staying, which I think he is on the right terms. But secondly, he needs to understand where Tottenham are heading and why he should stay. And then I think he'll go away for a while, probably a couple of months, and then make his decision towards the back end of this season as to what he actually wants. And because he did come reasonably close to joining Man City, and he did even push for that transfer, I think we should remain open-minded about it. I think that Tottenham have a certain level of confidence that he'll stay, because they know he likes being this, poster boy of Tottenham. He likes to have this responsibility of being the club's leader. He's won the fan base back after his moment and all the rest of it. But if United continue to evolve for the rest of this season and are actually like second, third in the league, Erik ten Hag proven he can improve people, I think that the outlook might change. So that's a long-winded way of saying anything could happen with Harry Kane yet, but it is genuinely true.
Quick fire on Kane was never going to work. It's too complex to answer that one in 10 seconds. And good to see in the chat, so many thinking he'll stay. I know Henry Savel's a season ticket holder at Spurs, thinking he'll stay. And Chat Sports says Kane could play till he's 35, but if he moves, then it's 3 seasons max. Just want to give my 10 pence worth on Osimhen before Dean moves us on with the next couple on the what do we call that? The gauge,
transfernomics. The source meter.
The source meter. That's it. And that so many fans of Arsenal and United, or just general Premier League fans, might say they'd love to see Osimhen in the Premier League. And there's fans of United and Arsenal that think that if they want Osimhen, then he just moves there. Mark's got it right. Like, this is a guy that's one of the 3 best 9s in the world, in my opinion. He's still to hit his prime. He's got such huge value in the transfer market. Napoli spent something like 80 million on it, which is huge for a club like Napoli.
Yeah.
He can win the Champions League with Napoli this season, and he's favourite to win Serie A as well. He's going to be leaving one of Europe's elite teams if he leaves Napoli. He needs guarantees that he's going to be playing for a top team. And at the moment, yeah, sure, United's a big draw, and I'm sure he'd be tempted, but it's no gimme. Same with Arsenal.
No.
It's no gimme. He's at a massive club at the moment who could win the Champions League this year. And I'd argue Napoli are the informed team in Europe right now. I genuinely think they've got a very good shot at the champs. So put some respect on Serie A and Osimhen when linking him with your team or the Prem.
Absolutely, yeah. Napoli are absolutely flying at the moment, and in fact, watch them if you get the chance. They're a good watch. Right, let's move on to the next rumour, and we're going on to Zaniolo at Tottenham. Nice one. This now, AC Milan. He's obviously at Roma at the moment. He's had a tricky time at Roma. He's such a good player. He's had a tricky time. He's had some injury problems. Some real, tough injuries as well for someone of his age and the style of play that he has. But he is an exciting footballer. And I've given it a medium rating because there's levels of competition here involved, and because we can't be sure exactly how he takes to the Premier League and that he can stay fit. So I don't want to go hype him up too much. If he was to fulfill his potential, though, this signing would be absolute fire for all of us. Like this is the kind of guy you do want in your FPL. Now, obviously today Tottenham there's been a twist in the Danjuma story, and looked like he was joining Everton. He's now going to Tottenham, so that's been the main talk of today. But Zaniolo, I think Danjuma is a good signing. I think Zaniolo will be equally good, and those two really reinvent the Tottenham attacking line. They bring new life to that team. They've had real problems this season. They have been so boring to watch at times, Tottenham this season. And I've really, anyone that's seen enough of them knows that is true. That's not being harsh at all. They're a hard watch. But these two additions would transform that. And they'd also give us something to think about in this game that we all play. So I think this could happen. AC Milan, as I say, are involved here in trying to sign him. Tottenham's point of view is that they want to try and loan him in at first and then look to sign him in the summer. So like you're seeing Danjuma on a loan, Zaniolo would be the same. I guess that kind of also fits in with the fact that nothing at Tottenham is very stable right now. We still don't know what's going to happen with Antonio Conte. Tottenham are cautious about investing big money in players if the regime is not going to be the same in 6 months' time. And they genuinely don't know that. Like, who knows? It could be Pochettino's back and doesn't fancy any of these players. Yeah. But Zaniolo and Danjuma, if you're a Tottenham fan, you should be willing these to happen because, in a season when Son's gone totally off the boil, when you've seen how lacking you are when Kulusevski's injured, Richarlison's had problems, you need something new up there, and these two might close that gap that you are painfully looking at between Tottenham and Arsenal at the moment.
And he plays for Mourinho at the moment, and Mourinho just doesn't fancy Zaniolo. He doesn't work for his system. Isn't perhaps the Mourinho-style player. This is a flair player that can play anywhere across the front three, but ideally, and Henry asks, Danjuma and Zaniolo both wingers in the same position. Is it one or the other? It's not necessarily one or the other for positions. It might be one or the other in terms of budget, but Zaniolo ideally is going to be a number 10, which begs the question, how does that work for a Conte system, knowing he plays 3-4-3? I don't know.
Well, Danjuma isn't necessarily. Yeah, I mean, Danjuma can also play as second striker, and he can play as like a forward. And I think that might just be something that Tottenham are looking for too. He can be an alternate to Kane. He could play off of Kane at times, but he could also play in those wide positions. So I think Danjuma is actually probably a bit more flexible than that.
Yeah. And Zaniolo ideally wants to be in 10, but can play wide. But AC Milan heavily linked. They've had a dreadful start off the back of the World Cup, Milan, and there's said to be a bit of money there. They've not spent big in recent windows. And I think Zaniolo, according to the Italian press, has said he prefers a move to Milan. But yeah, I like this medium rating, and I'd love to see him in the Premier League.
Yeah, great. Right, let's chat about the last one. We're getting short on time here. But the final rumour is Hakim Ziyech to Newcastle, and
great
probably going to surprise.
Asset.
Yeah, well, this is it. I've been looking into this one a lot over the past week. I know a few people that are well informed on this deal, so I've been chatting to them quite a bit about the possibilities around it. And I have to say that, like, the more I talk to them about it, the more I hear about like what Ziyech, how's he's feeling right now. I've gone hot. Like, I'm hot on this from every angle. Like, Newcastle were definitely looking at this deal. I think it's a great fit. And I think for us in FPL, it could bang. I think this could be really good for all of us. There's one attacking spot up for grabs at Newcastle at the moment, at least one spot. And if it's not Anthony Gordon that ends up going to Newcastle, I think there is a very good chance that it ends up being Hakim Ziyech that ends up joining them. Maybe Gordon then goes and takes his spot in the Chelsea squad. Maybe that's the way.
On Chelsea's bench. Brilliant.
Yeah, maybe that's how things work out. But a loan is possible with a view to a permanent. I think Chelsea... I think they spent about 30 million on Ziyech.
Yeah.
It was something like that. I think they're confident they can pretty much get their money back on that steal because it was a steal, really. Ziyech, still a really good player. I mean, there was that solo run he went on at the weekend where, even though I don't like Chelsea, I was actually willing him to stick that in the back of the net because I think he's such a nice player and I want to see him do well. But yeah, this is one to look out for from a Newcastle perspective if this Anthony Gordon thing doesn't go through. Michael says presumably Ziyech kills off Almiron as an option. Well, this is going to be part of the problem of Newcastle, and they want to have this problem. They want to have more options in attack because the problem they've got right now is they are becoming a little too predictable. And as I say, that is going to change a bit. Like Isak's coming back to fitness, St. Maximin's coming back into the team. They want another player to add into the mix because they are finding it a little harder at the moment to break down teams. And Ziyech has just got that craft that is different to anyone. If you think they were looking at James Maddison too, as Chat Sports says, get that Morocco form for Newcastle.
So true.
That Newcastle fan base too would absolutely love him. They really would. So yeah, I'm very hot on this idea.
Yeah, I love that. Even the Saudi owners, I'm sure, would love another Middle Eastern or Moroccan-based player there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be quite a sentimental one as well, maybe. And it'll be interesting to see because the likes of Maddison has been linked, but even James Ward-Prowse, I wonder if Southampton go down and he's up for grabs. A team like Newcastle, you'd expect to come in for a player like that.
Yeah, absolutely. FPL Spartan says could become Howl Roulette for FPL option. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, although they have gone around about their business
just stick with the defenders. Maybe we just stick with the defenders for the foreseeable until we see how this balances out.
Honestly, we should all have triple Newcastle defense. I don't think they've conceded a goal since the restart. Like, ridiculous.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
They just draw 0-0 or win 1-0 every game. Yeah. That's kind of what they do. 242 of you watching. Thank you for that, guys. If you're just joining, make sure you go back and watch the last hour. It's been an awesome show. We've got 97 likes. I would love us to get to 100 by the time I stop talking in like 20
Do the lads a favour. Get us to 100.
But look, we'll be back on Friday. We'll still be back on Monday and Friday next week as well. So look, these shows, knowing we've got a little bit of time before the next deadline, they're still going to be very topical. We'll be focusing on transfers before the window closes, but also answering your questions and still looking ahead. We'll have announcements over blank game weeks and double game weeks. We'll keep you posted on them too. We'll maybe even have some chip strategy chat and maybe some predictions for like the second half of the season and the teams we want to invest in moving forward. So loads of reasons to watch the next 3 shows on Friday, then the following Monday and Friday. So we look forward to seeing you later this week. We'll be back at 5 p.m. UK time, so a couple of hours earlier on Friday. We've hit that 100 like button, which is awesome. And we'll be back very, very soon. But for now, he's been Dean, I've been Janny, and we've been chasing green arrows.